Okay, good evening once again. Thank you all for making our time. We hope that others will be able to join even as we make progress. But then we also respect the time of our speaker as well as everyone here. So we're going to keep to time. Hope that others join us. So thank you, Lord, for coming. Thank you once again, Gabriel, for making our time to be here. Like I said on the group chat, Gabriel is an entrepreneur. He's also a facilitator at the Focus Business School, where I met at the school when I registered. And it has been a tremendous journey so far, learning from him. He has great experience, has worked in several fields, has businesses in several fields, and is well experienced to guide us this evening. So please feel free to ask questions when the time comes and engage the session intentionally. He's very much open to answer any question. I can assure you in any area. So without taking much time to let's please join me to welcome Gabriel as he leads us on this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. Let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, pleasure, guys. My name is Gabriel, as mentioned, and I am originally from Sweden, but I've been living here in Rwanda now for the last 10 years almost, and building businesses in education, in agriculture, in fintech, and the latest one in chili processing and the food processing industry. So I have quite a lot of experience in building businesses, but also building up accelerators and various programs within the entrepreneurship space here in Rwanda. I'm also one of the lead facilitators, as David mentioned, for Focus Business School. But shortly about my main business that I started around 9 years ago here in Rwanda. It's called BAG, or BAG Technologies. It's an edtech startup aiming to solve the problem of the lack of experience and direction among university students before graduation. We've created a platform using AI to simulate virtual work experience with local employers to enable the students to bridge the theory in school with the practice that is needed at the workplace. We've been running this now for the last 9 years. We have a team of around 18, 19 staff here in Kigali, run by me and my co-founder, Yusuf Mwali, who's the CEO. That's shortly about BAG. We have over 200,000 users on this platform, technologies such as gamification, AI, and it's been quite a successful tool, both for the student side, but also for universities on a subscription basis and employers on a subscription basis as a software. And so I'm happy to take any questions on that later on. David asked me to do a short session on ideation and solution building. So I'm going to quickly talk a little bit about my experience here in Rwanda. Please write down your questions. If there's something burning, you can interrupt me and ask. Otherwise, we'll do a Q&A by the end of it. Just quickly to start with, some of the most common mistakes when choosing a solution. From my experience working here in Rwanda and East Africa, originality is quite a big challenge. As we know, for most of us who's been in Rwanda for a long time, there's a lot of copycatting going on. So one company sees a solution working, for example, my company BAG, and within 2 to 3 years, you have 5 companies with the same color of branding, almost copy-paste websites from what we have, and delivering the exact same solution because they see we're getting investments or we're getting grants or we're winning competitions. And that's one part of it, is the lack of originality when choosing an idea. But then the people who do select a creative idea sometimes miss out on the real market demand. And that's something that we learned the hard way with Bag, is that even if it's an innovative idea, it doesn't exist in the region or in the country, it still has to be a demand, a big of enough demand worth paying for from the customer point of view. So it's not enough that you're solving a big problem and you have a massive impact and you know for a fact that this is a better solution for the client, but it has to be a big of enough problem for the client for them to actually purchase your solution. So even though we, for example, have an HR tool that is more affordable, it's quicker to find talents, and it's much better, that we believe at least, than the current market offering, it's still a long process to do the sales. It's still a long process to change the culture within the employers of using digital HR tools instead of the original or the traditional HR processes that they've been using before. So it requires a lot of sales and account management for our side, which is not part of our budget, which also means it changes our whole pricing model for the business. Market demand is a big one, and it's something that many people bypass, is basically by saying, well, this is a great solution. We're gonna help, let's say, girls out in the village with sexual reproductive health because it's such a big problem. Yes, it's a big problem. Yes, you'll have a massive impact if you can execute your idea, but you're trying to sell a mobile app where the subscription is $5 per year, but the people out in the village are not spending more than $5. I mean, they can't spend $5 in a year. They don't even trade in money. They trade in agriculture. And they many times, same thing with the motor drivers, same thing with any customer that you're building a solution for. You're building a payment model that is not suitable for the receiver. And that's something that, and even if the receiver has the money for it and is willing to pay for it, again, you have to understand the cultural context of that area, of that country, or that region, to be able to really create a true market demand for your product or service. Many people here in Rwanda, they rather go after social culture rather than the social demand. Meaning, okay, well, I see what every other wealthy Rwandan is doing. They're building apartments. Therefore, when I have a little bit of money, I'm also going to build apartments, right? But they're doing it from a completely different approach. They're taking a loan that they can't afford, and they're doing it basically because societal do when they choose university degrees here in Rwanda. They choose applied statistics and they study that for 3 years because it's so much social pressure about having a degree. But then after graduating, realizing that, oh, there's only one employer in the whole country that is hiring within this field, I have to reshift my career and I have to refocus on another topic. So why we have to ask ourselves why we choose a specific solution, why we tackle that specific problem. And is it because of a social issue, or is it because of an issue that it is worth solving and that can be paid for? And that there goes back to the social demand, which is also a big problem with entrepreneurs here, is there's a lack of proper research, meaning you've gone through enough months, you've gone through enough interviews, you've gone through enough focus groups to really understand in depth what the market is all about. And many entrepreneurs, they're very careful with sharing their ideas with other entrepreneurs, especially Rwandans. They're very suspicious of sharing their ideas with thinking that someone will steal their idea or do the same thing. Therefore, they don't go to the most relevant person in the country asking them, hey, is this a good idea? Especially the people who are in the same sector or have a similar solution, or who would be your competition. Because doing that is also something that will also help you do what we call future proofing, which means that yes, you might be building a software that helps us integrate the EBM much better today for financial management for a company, but then you haven't done enough research understanding that RRA is actually in a 5-year process about to phase out the EBM, and now you're building a software that won't be relevant for anyone in 5 years because of the new system that's going to be coming to place, right? And all of these questions, especially when it's connected to government and private sector, is something that you need to know regarding your sector. Then that said, it's also quite hard to find good research in Rwanda, generally in Africa, to find good statistics. If you want to, for example, enter my home country, Sweden, without setting a foot in Sweden, you can do enough digital research to really understand the market in depth and have an accurate picture of your specific sector. Whereas here, it's very hard to have a perfectly accurate picture of a specific sector by just following the published numbers that also might be published a few years ago, but it's not up to date from what's happening today. So those are some of the things that I've seen are quite critical when choosing a solution and designing an idea is really going to the 5 smartest people in this country and asking them, hey, I'm thinking, 5 smartest people in that specific sector, I'm thinking of starting this idea. What do you advise me to do differently? But when you present that idea to them, you have created a proper solution statement and a proper problem statement so that they're able to say, okay, the solution sounds nice, but add these 2 words in your solution and suddenly you're now going to be competitive compared to what the rest is offering. So ask yourself, have you done that type of research? And in your case, I know it's quite short, but it's enough to do phone calls, figuring out the network in Kigali, getting referrals from your own networks to make sure you can speak with the right people that can help you give this final feedback to your solution. So on that note, I wanted to talk about something that we use when designing ideas, which is design thinking. Which is a practice that revolves around a deep interest in developing an understanding of the people for whom we're designing the products or services. Many times we design an idea because someone told us it's a great idea, or we believe it's a great idea because we have seen that there's an issue on the market, but we haven't gone out there and asked the real clients, the real customers, the people who are impacted by this, if that actually is the real problem or the real problem lies somewhere else. So design thinking revolves around 5 steps, and it's a circular process. So the first step in design thinking is empathizing, meaning whatever your product you're building, putting yourself in the customer's shoes, emphasizing with their lack of finances, emphasizing with the lack of time, emphasizing with the lack of whatever it is that your solution is solving and that problem. How does that look like for you to emphasize with them? If you're building a solution for someone who's handicapped and sitting in a wheelchair, you can emphasize with them by just looking at them, but to really understand what they're going through, you should be sitting in that wheelchair for a day, 2, or a week to really understand the pains they're going through. Then after that, you can start defining your problem, right? And which is the second step is after you've emphasized with the customer, understood the customer in depth, you define the real problem. And your user's needs and your insights combined should help you define what your problem is, right? And the definition of the problem, we normally use an exercise called the 5 whys, meaning when you have a problem statement, which most of you probably already have, you ask yourself, okay, our problem is that farmers can't access the end customers. So they end up losing a lot of their post-harvest losses. And that's normally what you'll see on a pitch deck. But then if you ask yourself 5 times, why do they not have access? So someone should be asking you a question on your problem and just say why. And then you're going to answer that why, and then you ask why again. So you ask why 5 times, and you'll closely come to the in-depth true issue of what your problem lies within. Meaning you ask that person who's pitching to the farmer, you say, so why can't they access the market? It's because they live in Ramagana. But why is that a problem? Yes, because all the customers are in Kigali. So why is that a problem? That's because they're having a feature phone. But why is that a problem? Because if they feature phone, they can't access the online portals, etc., etc. Until you've come to the real last why, that is normally the real solution you're solving. And the first one that you normally have is just more of a placeholder, but you should really try to understand the in-depth solution that lies within what you're trying to solve. Now, the third one is ideation. Meaning coming up with different solutions to that problem. Now, maybe you already have a solution in mind that you're building on, but asking yourself, okay, we're building this solution. What could be another way to solve this problem, right? We're building an app to do X, Y, Z. Is there another way? Yeah, there is another way. We could become an NGO and we could solve it by doing X, Y, Z. Would that be better or worse? No, it wouldn't be better because it's not sustainable and the funding is going to run out. But ideating by creating 2 or 3 hypothetical scenarios of other ideas that could solve the same problem that you're solving with another type of solution. So by ideating, meaning you don't just go on the first thing that comes to your mind, but you've come up with 3 or 4 suggestions or ideas that could solve the problem. And that's also where you also involve people in your network to ask them, hey, I'm working on these 2-3 different ideas of how to solve this problem. Which one of these makes most sense for the East African setting, as an example? After that, we go on to prototyping. So now you've collected enough feedback, you've chosen one of these ideas, and now you want to prototype this platform on the markets. Now, in this case, you guys are I think it's a hackathon, right? So you might not have a clear prototype in mind, but it doesn't mean you can't have a slide deck already finished and you've tested it with 5 people from your customer base and ask them, hey, this is not the actual platform, but we've created some visuals using AI and whatnot to kind of give you a feeling for the experience from start to finish with our product. And then ask them, hey, through this video or through these pictures that we've created, what was your feelings? Did you have any concerns? How much would you be willing to pay for it? Prototyping is creating that ability to give feedback from the customer, right? And when you've prototyped that, you go out and you test it. Meaning, okay, now you have, even if it's not a finished solution, you're able to test it well enough to get the feedback on what is working and what is working. And when you've done that, design thinking is all about restarting again. So now you have that solution, you go back to step number 1, which means you emphasize with your user, with your now newly developed solution. You define that problem for the solution that you've chosen, and you go round and round and round until the idea has really been developed thoughtfully. So emphasizing with your user, you could see with, for example, with COVID, everyone started using their masks and everyone immediately started using the blue masks, right? But then pretty much immediately you saw entrepreneurs being a bit creative with it, saying, okay, but they're forcing us to use the mask, but they're not forcing us to use a specific type of mask, right? So then you have entrepreneurs saying, well, I'm going to start creating my own design because what I can see with the users is that most of them don't like the comfort of this mask, but they also don't like the look of this mask. So they want something that is a bit more appropriate maybe for their professional or personal setting or personal branding. So then people started emphasizing with the user and started creating designs and functionals that made it much themselves with a mask rather than this typical medical mask that we had, right? But it came out of an experience of you yourself wearing this mask and realizing how uncomfortable it was for you to then go and innovate on that specific solution. So defining the problem statements, what is a meaningful problem statement? Again, I talked about the 5 whys when it comes to the real problem. Most of us, we end by just saying, well, our problem is that university students are not getting jobs after graduation. So we're going to build a solution that helps them with that. But that is not the problem, that they're not getting a job, right? And then you can say, well, why are they not getting a job? It's because their education system is not good enough. Okay, but why is the education system not good enough? Well, it's because it's a public university, it's too many students. So why is public university struggling with too many students? And then the more you ask that, the more specific your solution will be, targeting a specific problem within the education sector. So again, ask yourself that question 5 times. Why am I solving this? Why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? And it will really help you define a much more clearer problem statements. So why is design thinking important for business? It gives you an opportunity to look at the problem from a different perspective, allows you to dive into a problem, to determine its root cause and encourage innovative thinking and creative problem solving. So design thinking is also a lot about doing this visually, meaning using whiteboards, using Post-its, using things in front of you, not just sitting on your computer and using ChatGPT, but being able to be creative with your hands and your body will also help you kind of much clearer get an overview, an outside perspective of the problem that you're trying to solve. And we've used this a lot in our trainings, and we've seen it being very impactful for companies. Now, another exercise in design thinking is creating a user persona. And this is something that's very impactful for new starting businesses, startups, but also just ideas trying to uncover how they're going to be delivering a solution on the markets. A persona is basically imagine yourself having a Facebook profile. You want to create a generalization of all your customers. So ask yourself, can I get an example maybe from someone on the call, someone who has an example problem that they're trying to solve or an example solution that they're trying to deliver? Anyone who's willing to share just one sentence of what are you trying to build? Go ahead. Don't be shy. You can unmute if you're
Good
ready.
morning. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel. I'm Elvis Ndewimana. I am a co-founder I'm a founder of Girinzozi Hub, which our problem is that 60% of here in Rwanda use IJO. They are just finished as you've said or mentioned before. They are just IJO, or some of them have potential but don't know where to start to turn their potential into productivity. So our solution is to first of all use basketball to hook them come to the pitch, and then we start to discover which potential are there which are not being used. Then we schedule the mentorship sessions after the training sessions, and then after that we run 6 month programs, which will equip them the life skill, leadership, and be ready enough to the digital confidence so that they can start uh, participating and engage into the economic world. That's our solution. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what's the age span of that? The age range of your target customer?
We've first of all decided to do a research based on this age range. It's between 40 years old to 30 years old.
40 to
14, yeah, 14 to 30, yeah.
14 years to 30 years old. Okay.
Exactly.
So taking that solution as an example, to build a persona, let's say you have between 14 and 30 years of age here in Rwanda, let's say we have 5 million people in that bracket that fits your target group. But then you're targeting, let's say, people who have graduated secondary. So let's say that's 3 million people in Rwanda. Now we want to generalize those 3 million people between the age of 14 and 30 years of age into one individual. And we want to build a Facebook profile for that one individual. And every answer that we have should be representing the 3 million people into one person, right? So we would come up with a name for that individual. So that's a common name, let's say, for a youth in that age, let's say, I don't know, Umotoni Nadia, right? So Nadia Umotoni, she's 24 years of age. She lives in Kimironko. She is a student. She lives with her parents. And then we have hundreds of questions we can ask ourselves of what does Nadia Umotoni do in an average day? Nadia, she transports herself to school in the morning, and after school, she spends around 1,200 francs every day on moto or bus fee to get to school. She has 2 siblings. She has this kind of interest. She has this kind of hobbies. Some of her biggest challenges is this. Some of her biggest values, we can assume, for example, that she's a Christian. We can assume that she goes to church on Sundays. We can assume that depending on where she lives, we can assume a couple of different things that could be generalized to that big population, right? A lot of that has to do with Rwandan culture and Rwandan habits. But why we do this is basically we create a whole Facebook profile of any and every question we can imagine about a generalization of the 3 million people in that target group. And then when we have that persona, we would then ask ourselves, based on your solution, we would ask, hey, would Nadia use our solution? Yes or no? Yes, she wants the solution. But would she come and want to play basketball? Yes, she would love to play basketball. Would she be interested in hearing more information? No. According to Nadia's culture, she would be a bit suspicious. So she'd love to play the game, but she might not want to interact with this. How can we make Nadia interact better with this, right? What is the threshold or the societal pressure or the societal norm that is removing her from actually solving that problem by herself today without your solution existing? But the persona is about building, imagine a Facebook profile. Hobbies, interests, she likes to eat, she's this specific age. And then when you have that Nadia in your head, and it's a fictional person, Nadia is now representing 3 million people. It's much easier to build a solution around Nadia Umotoni than it is to build a solution around 3 million people in different age brackets, right? So we would choose also the age that is most relevant for our solution and when they would most likely interact with our solution. But it's something I would encourage you guys to do as an exercise, is create a persona. So this one is a shortened down one. I would advise you to go on Google and write persona building or creating a persona. Then you'll get hundreds of free templates that you can download, and you can see what type of questions you should be asking yourself about the user or customer's generalization. Then we have something called an empathy map. So Nadia Motoni, what does she normally say? So in this case, they're talking about dating. So what does she say when it comes to dating? Online dating is a nightmare. What else does she say in Rwanda? She says, oh, there's no good men left. Everyone's out drinking and partying. There's no good Christian men left. Or they're so hard to find a good guy. All the good guys are taken. Whatever that person would say regarding the solution that you're building, so in this case, dating, you would put that on a board or on your computer as, what does Nadia say, right? Now, what is she thinking? She's thinking that she really wants to meet someone with these criteria. She really wants to meet someone who has the same interests as her. She thinks, why are most people in Musanze, or well, I'm living outside of Musanze? Whatever it is that they're thinking regarding, again, your solution and your problem, what can you write as the thoughts of your user? Now, what does she do? Does she go into dating apps? What does she do to solve the problem of dating? Does she put herself out there? Does she market herself in any way? Or is she completely passive, waiting for someone to come and show her all the attention, right? What is the typical behavior, the actual behavior of the user, again, regarding your solution, not dating? What does she feel? In this case, she's frustrated, she's skeptical, she's confused, she's afraid of being perceived in a way that people don't want her to be perceived as. Whatever it is, what is the feelings that you can think about your customer having when it comes to in relation with your solution? So again, repeating the steps, design thinking is about emphasizing. So you've looked at it, you've tried it, you've felt, what are they going through? Why are they going through it? And then understanding in depth, why is that a problem for that specific user? When you have that in mind, you define your problem, you define it with insights and data, with focus groups, with questions and research. Then you ideate, meaning come up with several ideas, not just one idea. So if you went with your first original idea, I can guarantee you, if you ask any entrepreneurs who's been successful, the idea they had in the beginning and the idea they had after running the business for 3 or 4 years is completely changed, because of the amount of times they've presented it to people and the amount of feedback they've gotten from people. They change it to make it more receptive with the end user of their product, including Bag. It's probably changed its solution statements once every 2 years to make it easier and better for people to understand what we're actually doing. Prototyping, what have you done to prototype your solution? Again, even if you're just doing it over a week or a few days, there's always ways you can prototype your idea visually, by a slide deck, by just a few buttons, using Lovable to build the first prototype of your app or your solution, so that whoever is going to be engaging with it can test it out, at least a few of them, so you get the first original feedbacks before you pitch it to your final jury. And then understanding, how do you test it with the target group? What does testing look like for you with your service? If it's a big project and you need funding first, how can you do it in a small scale where you don't need to input funding to test your idea, etc., etc. Right? So that's the basic principles of design thinking. So just generally what I've seen when it comes to presentations, you guys, I'm assuming you're going to be pitching to a jury, and you're going to be having pitch decks similar to these ones. And this is like typically how the decks should be looking like, right? You should have, not these ones maybe, but this is a perfect example of what your deck should look like. You should have a problem and then one sentence, what is your problem? And then you have a visual of that specific customer, right? So now you have a picture of that Nadia Umutoni. She's sitting on the side of the road, and you can clearly emphasize and understand what is her problem, right? And a great way to describe that problem is to describe, instead of just saying there's 70,000 farmers that are facing a specific challenge in Rwanda, it's better to use your persona, if you created that one, and you say, John de Dieu Tuyishimwe is 42 years old and he has 4 kids, and by the end of the month he only has 4,000 francs left. But for him to deliver his service, he needs another 28,000 to be able to run this business efficiently. If you say that sentence to a jury, they're going to be like, wow, that person has understood their problem. They've talked to the customer, and I can really feel with the John de Dieu. But if you say 70,000 farmers, I can't relate, I can't emphasize, and it becomes hard for me to kind of understand why is your solution so important to be delivered, right? So it's really a way to work through how you present your solution and problem statements. When you've defined the solution statement, criticize it by letting other people who are knowledgeable in that space criticize the way you're describing the one-sentence solution. And you should be able to tell it to someone in one sentence, and they should be able to understand what you do. If you have to talk 4 or 5 sentences to describe your solution, yes, you'll have time to describe the technical aspects of your solution, but the one sentence that you can say on a stage needs to be simple. An 11-year-old girl should be able to quickly understand, okay, I understand what this person is doing. I might not be an expert in that area, but I understand the context of where he's delivering his solution. So try not to overcomplicate the way you describe your solution. So what does that mean in terms of applying it into business? It's not just about early stage startups. This is also big organizations doing the same process with changing their own internal processes and external processes, improving services. They use the process of design thinking to improve the outcomes of their businesses. Yeah, so I think that's most what I had to cover. Very happy to discuss ideas. When it comes to solution statements, again, maybe the last statement I can say, for example, I invested into a chili sauce company here in Rwanda, and there was already 5 or 6 different brands in the chili sauce market here in Rwanda, main one being Sina Gerard and Akabanga. And people weren't really motivated going into the space because he had 80-90% of the market demand. But then one company came and said, I'm going to open up a chili sauce brand. And then he connected with the right mentors, the right investors, the right people around him, because he was a solo entrepreneur. And just through the exposure of the advisory board and the first investors that he took in, he was able to, within 2 years, take over a considerable portion of Sina Gerard. So in this case, some of you guys might have heard of it. It's called Intuiti Foods, which is now 2.5 years old chili brand. But they're really taking over in the supermarkets all over Kigali, and slowly taking over the market supply of Sina Gerard. Mainly because Sina Gerard is not doing any marketing. He's not tending to his customers. He's delivered the same product the last 10 years and has no need to innovate the process. But I can guarantee you, within 1 year, he's going to notice that he's losing a big market share, and soon you're going to suddenly see Sina Gerard and all of his products being marketed again with creative ideas, high quality footage, because of the market competition. But it's by just taking the same existing solution that so many else has tried out, by just putting an extra effort into marketing, an extra effort into quality delivery, and making sure that the recipe has been worked on and tried and tested and collected feedback on enough times to know that when people try it, they're going to recommend it, and it's not just another chili sauce, made the massive difference from him being a few million Rwanda francs per year kind of startup to growing up to several hundred millions per year in revenues, just because of excellent product delivery and changing what the current market is doing pretty much the exact same way. So I would really advise you to think it through. Ask people around you, is this a creative idea? Is there any alternative ways this problem is being solved? Is this the best way to solve it? Is there a better way to solve it? And working through that accurately can really make a big difference in the final presentation that you'll have with your jury. So yeah, that's it for me. Let's go into Q&A. Any questions regarding general entrepreneurship or solution and problem solution statements? Just go ahead if you have any questions. Elvis.
Okay, thank you very much. So that was wonderful session, very insightful. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. Some of the insights you've mentioned have been keeping me up at night, but still I have to keep going. And thank you. So my question is, how do you know when your problem statement is specific enough? Like, what is the test to apply to it before you moving forward?
How do you know when your problem statement is accurate enough?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have just said about the slide deck, you've mentioned that you need to be specific enough, at least one line, one sentence. So how do you know that it's very specific in the way that you, or how what you can apply to it before you confirm that this sentence tells the investors, tells the audience a lot that this is exactly what I'm solving, or this is exactly what is painful to the particular customers.
So generally, this is something entrepreneurs learn the hard way, meaning they've pitched the business, and like the way we've learned the best is as BAG, we have pitched in pretty much every competition there is in Rwanda. We've gathered over $600,000 in startup grants just pitching this solution. And what we've learned from that is that every time you pitch in front of a jury, the first and second question that they ask normally tells you a lot about how to improve your problem statements. Generally, if they ask something that they're asking for clarification, so you're saying that this is the problem, meaning they did not understand what you said in the problem statement. It was not clear enough how you articulated the problem statement. So it's quite hard to say when it's ready, and it's never really going to be ready. It's an ongoing process, even as a registered business, how to really define your problem statements. But the minimum thing that you need to do is proof test it, future proof test it by just asking 5-10 people who are knowledgeable, not your mom or your sister or your brother, but ask knowledgeable in the space, hey, this is my problems and solution statement. Does this make sense to you? If you could give me any advice on how to formulate this problem statement to improve it, what would you do? If you ask that to 5 knowledgeable people, you've done more than enough to have at least a good starting base for your problem statement. But most of us, we just ask ChatGPT and Google, and then we go with the basic problem statement. But really asking, and also asking the end user of your product, who is going to be using it, if the way you're describing the problem actually makes sense, or if they can relate to it. And if they can't, then you need to rephrase it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I see a lot of people on the call. There must be some questions here. Paul is raising his hand. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yep.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session, and greetings to everyone. Honestly, I really enjoyed the session. Like, there's a part where you're talking about, the real truth, why we have to be facing and all that, which is something that really resonates with my journey so far. So I think in case of, let's say, founders are having difficulties in the growth of their own startups, what advice do you give, like, where they have to resort to? Is it mentorship? I mean, I think it's a very difficult question in the process of trying to run something. I think those who have experience with this can understand. Like, you have questions and you need answers. Where do you think we should get those answers? You understand? I hope this is not a difficult question for you. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, the thing that I learned quite early on is having a right advisors. So even if it's not a formal board, a great thing to do as an early stage startup is to assign an advisory board, meaning, and it's not that hard to convince people to be in an advisory board if you format it professionally. If you tell them, hey, this is not going to take you more than 2 hours every quarter, we're going to do an online call after work hours, 5 to 7 p.m. We're going to do a call. And then you've assembled a team where those guys who are coming in as advisor also feels inspired by being part of that team due to the setup of your advisory board. And you ask the absolute toughest questions. Hey guys, we're about to launch this. This is the challenge. This is the financial struggle. This is what we're hearing from the market. What's your advice? And that for us has been a lifesaver many times when we've been close to closing down the business or we've been struggling, is just sitting down from an outside perspective, asking them, hey guys, what would you do in this situation? So the advisory boards and the mentor is, of course, a real crucial person in this situation, because startups will be struggling. Startup entrepreneurs for the first 1 to 2 years will be the toughest time ever. It's only 20-30% of the entrepreneurs that pass the 2-year mark. And that's where you're in the deepest point of your company. But if you come through that, you will be so much stronger as a company. And that to come through that, obviously you need, and many investors, they wouldn't invest in a company, for example, if it's just one founder, because then they know how tough it is. They want you to have co-founders. They want you to have complementary skills. So if you're the salesperson, they also want a technical person in your founding team for them to trust you. But they also know that it's so much pressure that one of you might burn out. They need to know that if one of you disappear, the other one can continue running the company. So definitely having a team and advisors around you that are knowledgeable, I would say is a key thing to come through a tough period like that. Okay, any other questions? Nothing. Seems like people want to go back to their Sunday chilling. Anything else from you, David? Or any questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Gabriel, for your time. I know you have, okay. Someone has another question. You can go ahead and ask.
Oh, voilà. Okay. Yeah, so Nakato is asking if I clearly haven't understood. What I have not clearly understood is that when I develop my product, the community, and check whether it works with them, can a persona do it very well? Just like I've said. So no, I've also said in the presentation that research is absolutely key in the design thinking process. The prototyping is absolutely key. So meaning if you can't go to the village, you can at least simulate it by having phone calls or asking someone else to do that work for you. But of course, if you're developing a solution for the community, you need to be out in the community. You need to have seen where the problem exists, where it starts from. It's not enough to say that farmers can't access the market. You've been and you've talked to the farmer. You've understood what is the key reason for why he's not accessing the market, and how would he like to access the market. So for sure, you have to be in the middle of the sector of where you're solving your solution. If you do have time, and I'm not sure how much time you guys have to develop your idea, but if you do have the time, you should be talking at the ground, at the place where your customer is, on top of creating the persona, because that will also help you do the generalization of your persona and making that persona and generalization of all the farmers much more accurate. Okay, any other questions? Elvis?
Yeah, the other question I have is about persona. You know, when you frame in that way, I thought there is sometimes people you meet and then refuse to give you the full details about what they think or what they feel. That's obvious. So I was questioning myself that if the user cannot always articulate what they feel or what they think, maybe because they have never been asked that before. So how do you feel the empathy? How do you fill out the empathy map accurately without projecting your own assumptions onto them?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, especially in Rwandan culture, because they will tell you what they think you want to hear rather than the actual truth of the situation. So there's a lot of hidden communication that needs to be understood. the best way to understand it, like for example, phone interviews or direct interviews with people, and you're saying that you're building a solution to help farmers access the market. Now I want to ask you 3 questions, and you ask the farmer 3 questions. He's going to tell you what you want to hear. Yes, I'm struggling with this. Yes, I need help with this. And that sounds great. But then what you should be doing is having a hidden video camera in his living room, because that's where he's going to be talking and ranting about how angry he is about not being able to solve the solution, or no one is doing it in the way he really wants it to be solved. So the only way we can really understand that is by observation. So not really like in one, of course you can do the interviews, and if you do enough interviews, you should be able to slowly identify one key issue that everyone is facing. But just interviews is not enough to have an in-depth understanding of the problem. It needs to be observed, it needs to be felt. So that's why the emphasizing is really important, meaning that you just don't go there for a 30-minute interview with a farmer, but the best entrepreneurs are the one who grew up facing a challenge for their whole life. They felt it, they observed it, and they know everything of the parameters around that specific challenge. And that's why it's so easy for them to formulate a great solution statement around it. So it's definitely multidisciplinary. It's not just doing an interview with 10 people. And when I'm saying also ask the smart people, like if you go and ask a random person that you don't know who's delivering a similar solution to you in the similar sector, he's going to tell you also what you want to hear. Yeah, you can do it. It's great. It's great. It's great. But he's not going to tell you the biggest secrets that he has. He's not going to tell you the biggest challenges that he's facing, because you're also not asking very clearly about that. You're not expecting those kind of things. So there's a need for a balance between understanding who you're asking. Are they genuinely sharing? Same thing with the advisory board. It's a genuine advisory board that wants the best for you. And if you truly believe that, they will give you the right answers, but it needs to be balanced with interviews. It needs to be balanced with focus groups. It needs to be balanced with you trying out your own service or product, trying it out for a few months or weeks or days or whatever it is, to really understand the right the right issue that you're trying to solve. I hope that makes sense. Like it's a bit of a balance between all of it. Okay, any other questions?
Any more questions?
So tell me, David, just quickly summarize what you guys are preparing for and what's the program about.
Okay, thank you so much, Gabriel. So this is a Entrepreneurship Summit Hackathon for 2026. So we have participants over 131, although we make the masterclass optional for those who already think they have all they need to work on their product. So basically, winners of the hackathon get to move to Indonesia to present. That's part of the gifts that they get to win from the hackathon, and then also to work and scale their business. So the ideas scale around climate, education, technology. These are the areas where they can work on their solution. So it's a 1-month hackathon. So we started last month. And then we've had like one masterclass. This is the second masterclass. And then we have the last masterclass, which is going to be on pitching. They are supposed to submit their final pitch deck on the 25th of this month. Then we review and then pick the top maybe 10 or 15, and then they go for a pitch. And then we select the winners who then move to Indonesia for final presentation. Yeah.
Okay. Clarissa? Go ahead, Clarissa.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask, when you're going to do the pitching on the 25th of this month, you said, can we need like a complete prototype or a demo is going to be?
Can you go closer to the microphone? I didn't hear your question, Clarissa.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was inquiring, when you're going to do, can I try to it down?
Yeah, maybe you write it down. Your microphone sounds a bit water damaged or something. Okay, but just generally from what you said there, David, and I've been in a jury myself many times for these startup competitions. The winners are the ones that has the balance between a nice, not just a nice designed pitch deck, but a visual, nicely designed pitch deck is very important. We use a software called pitch.com. Let me write it in the chat. Pitch.com is a website that uses AI to generate presentations. So you add in your information there. It helps you create nicely visual designs. There's a free version. There's a paid version. Otherwise, obviously, you guys are using PowerPoint and Google Slides and whatnot, but don't use this typical old template that you can find from Google Slides or PowerPoint that is integrated already in that software. The jury will recognize it. They won't appreciate it. You've worked through it. When you do have your startup slide deck, Google nice looking startup slide deck in your sector in agriculture. You'll get hundreds of examples of how your slides should be looking like. So make sure you work through that in a way that it's visually presentable to the jury, combined with obviously the preparation work of the presentation. You're not reading directly off your PowerPoint slide. You're talking from experience. You're talking from confidence. It's quite important when they select this. And remember that the jury is not probably an expert in your specific sector. So they're not super knowledgeable. So when you're describing complex scenarios or complex technologies, you should be able to dumbify it to a level, as I said, that an 11-year-old should understand it. And they don't need to have a full understanding of your specific sector. So Clarice, she wrote, I'd like to know if we'll require a complete prototype for the pitching this month, or a pitch deck will do with a proper problem statement and solution. I'm not involved in your in that, so I think David can probably answer that better. Yeah, I don't know if you need a prototype or not.
All right, thank you, Gabriel. Before I answer Clarissa, I don't know if Toby's question will be directed to you, Gabriel. Toby?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, my question is directed to Gabriel. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you for this masterclass that I had. It was really eye-opening. So my question is, you mentioned something about the 5 whys, if I'm not wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I will ask, in a case you are going through you're asking yourself the questions, why this, why that, when you get to probably like the 3rd why, and you see that this is a problem you can solve, do you need to keep asking yourself questions or just stand still at that part that you are in? That's my question.
That's related to the when do you know your problem statement is good enough, I think. And if you feel like you've touched to the bottom or the core of that problem statement after 3 whys, and that's really where you need to formulate your problem statement around, then of course you can stop there. But again, as I said, it's a moving process. It's an endless process. So even if you do believe you have the right problem statement now, the way you describe it and the way you get the people listening to you to emphasize the way you describe about that problem will always change the more you present. So before you guys pitch, I would definitely recommend you guys to do that presentation, full presentation, to a couple of people, so that you know what are the first questions that come up afterwards, so that you can start doing some small edits before you come to the final jury. Did someone else raise their hand, or they took it down again? Yeah, they did. Okay, any other questions? No.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
It appears we don't have anyone. All right. There's no other question except for clarifying for the pitch. Which I'll do that. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for your time. Really grateful. I know I reached out on a very short notice, but thank you so much for making our time to be here. Guys, I also dropped his link. His LinkedIn. You can also connect there. I also dropped the website for BAG. I also dropped in the group chat. Please do well to connect. Gabriel is really experienced and he has really been helpful. Especially for those who are in Rwanda, please, you can maximize and learn a lot from him. Thank you so much, Gabriel. Much appreciated. Please, we can just give him a round of applause, emojis, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Should I jump out or?
Yes.
Cool stuff. Have a good one.
You too.
Cheers.
Yeah. So guys, thank you for showing up. I really wish that we had more people on board. Gabriel is also in Nigeria. Oh, okay. Sorry. You have Gabriel in Nigeria as well. Okay. So with respect to the pitch, on the prototype, so let me start with the prototype. Also, Keep can also come in as well. But if you remember when we started the info session, we encouraged you to give it all you can. If you have a prototype, it would be great because much more than pitching for just this event, we are hoping that you scale your product. And then if you probably will be traveling to Indonesia, you're going to be meeting with a lot of people, right? And then once they see that if you eventually have a prototype, it also have a way of showing the depth of like how serious you are working on this. So because you're competing also with a lot of people, and then if they see that you're able to go extra mile to give that, it will be great. However, if you don't have it before the time, it is still fine. But just to say that put in as much effort as you can to build something that is great and worthwhile. Yeah, that's what we say for that. I know Keep will also throw in some points as well. With respect to the pitching, clarify on when we are to have the pitching class. Yeah. So I'm going to send in the timelines. I know I've sent it before, but I'm going to resend it. If I can remember very well, it's going to be on the 3rd of May. But I'm going to still confirm and drop all the timelines. And the deadline for final submission is going to be on the 25th. I'm also going to send a Google form where we're going to fill in our final submissions. So you definitely get it this week so that you can have, if you want to submit it earlier before 25th, you can. So you have to 25th. 25th is the final date of submission. And then we're going to have our final masterclass on pitching on the 27th for those who need guidance on how to pitch. And then we now have like a week before the final pitching for those that will be selected to pitch. But then I would have Keep if you have any other perspective to more information to throw in, please go ahead.
I don't really have much. I think it's the timelines that you have mentioned. I
Okay.
feel like the most important thing to point out is you guys need to nail the pitch and you need to provide a demo for a working prototype. I think that's the most important thing also because nowadays with the AIs and the LLMs, it's easy to just design some slides and just put anything up there. So we need to ensure that when we are sending you to Indonesia, you're actually going to send some people who are passionate about the project they have. So just have a working prototype, ensure that's really proper. It's not just something that can be done with AI within a few seconds. I mean, we don't restrict you guys from using AI, but put some effort, right? Iterate over it so many times until it's something solid. Say that if we take you to Indonesia, you can even continue and make it even a full-time startup because when you go there, you can meet people, can turn your idea into a full-time startup. As you could see, Mercy from our first, and even she's going to come back again for the last masterclass. Our product is doing really well out there. I think they've started selling and even they have a very good traction. So we just want you guys to have like a solid solution. Yeah, that's probably it from my end, but we'll start interacting with you guys once you guys start submitting your solutions. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Keep, for your guidance and leadership as always. So if you have any more clarifications, anybody, do you have more questions so that we can close it for the evening? Yeah. So for those who are asking if you have complete prototype, I hope you have gotten clarity. Yeah, awesome. Nakatsu, sorry, forgive me if I don't get the name well. Are you clear also? Okay. Gabriel from Nigeria, are you good? And Paul? All right.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So thank you guys for joining the call. Please let's give it our best, put our best foot forward. Yeah, looking forward to the final phase. I think we have 2 weeks left. Yeah, so we're going to drop the dates for the timelines required for you, and then also final pitching masterclass, as well as final submissions. I've said before that just in case you need also guidance or you have more questions, that is why we have the WhatsApp group. And then also you can, our DMs are very much open for more questions. Keep is very much available for office hours as well. So please maximize us as much as you can, and also connect with the speakers that we have, because also it's very important. For instance, like Gabriel, if you, for instance, like have a pitch deck and then you send it to him to go through, he's very much available to go through and give you feedback. So but most times people don't just want that you throw the work at them. They basically want that, oh, you make an effort, and then basically once you're coming on board, they're just like trying to give you more perspective, not that they do the entire work for you. So the masterclass is also an opportunity for you to connect with the speakers we have with you. And then if they're even around here or close to you, it's also a great opportunity for you to maximize them. So thank you so much for your time, and do have a wonderful week ahead. Cheers.